I am sure you're all aware by now, you've probably seen the article, and yes, there is much dooming and glooming, but honestly, don't worry, because I actually think there is a lot of positive stuff here. The Nighthaunt previews have hit us, and they have honestly scared some people witless, but as I said, honestly, we do have some good things to look forward to, I promise. So today we're going to be diving into the upcoming Nighthaunt rules, and we will be looking at them and working out just what kind of things we are going to be good at and what advantages we do have when the new battle tome does come out. As was mentioned in the big preview, the main battle traits for the Nighthaunt have gone through a fairly big overhaul. Gone is Wave of Terror, which gave you those various debuffs to enemy units on the charge, as well as the really nice ability to essentially charge whilst you were in combat to kind of re-inflict those debuffs. Now we have a swathe of new abilities, and first up is the returning Ethereal. It is still here, but it has been changed significantly, and actually just in terms of the rule itself, it has been buffed. The only way the rule has changed is that it now allows you to ignore negative modifiers rather than any, so you can now actually benefit from positive modifiers, so you can now use Ethereal with things like all-out defense. So from that perspective, Ethereal has got better. The main reason that most people say Ethereal has been nerfed is because to counterbalance that, your army saves across the board in terms of army armor saves have got a lot worse. So the downside is that armor saves now are 5 up for all of your hero units, but all of your other ghosts have dropped to a 6 up save. So now Ethereal doesn't give you a pretty much army-wide 4+ unrendable armor save anymore. It now gives you, for most of your units, an unrendable 6 up armor save that you can improve with all-out defense. So your heroes with a 5 up save base, they can get back to that 4 up save with all-out defense, but your regular ghosts most of the time will now be stuck on a pretty unreliable, pretty bad 6 up save. So yes, that is a very big nerf right out of the gate. However, to also balance that out a bit, the army-wide ward save you have also has been improved. So now instead of the regular 6 up ward you pretty much had across the board, you now have got a 5 up ward pretty much army-wide. So your armor saves are worse, your ward saves are better, and also you can now use things like all-out defense to further improve your armor save. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, but generally on the face of it, that is worse, dropping from a 4 up unrendable 6 up ward to a 6 up unrendable 5 up ward, even with all-out defense, potentially getting you to a 5 up unrendable 5 up ward, is generally worse in terms of what we've got now. However, that isn't all that changed, because there was one last addition on the durability side of things, and that is that they've also made some changes to our bigger infantry ghost units, things like Bladegeist Revenants, Grimghast Reapers, and I would also presume things like your Dread Scythe Harridans. They now all look set to be getting a bump to 2 health each. And what this means in essence is that your old 4 up unrendable 6 up ward 1 health ghosts will now be 6 up unrendable 5 up ward 2 health ghosts. And whilst I would agree a 6 up unrendable save really isn't great, even with the use of all-out defense, if the points stay similar or the same as they are now, this new profile is actually better than it was before. Previously, against something like 10 Chaos Warriors that would be throwing out 31 attacks on an objective, which hit and wound on 3s, they would get through about 5 to 6 wounds onto something like a Bladegeist Revenant, killing off 5 to 6 models. However, with the new profile, they do get more wounds through. They get around 7 to 8 wounds after your 6 up save, 5 up ward. But because you are now 2 health, that only leads to about 3 to 4 slain Revenants. So as I said, if the points stay the same, this is going to be better for you. And even against things that ignore ward saves, you can still expect to be more durable than before. If you take away that old 6 up ward or the new 5 up ward that you have in the new battle tome on things like your Bladegeist Revenants, the old profile with that 4 up save, they still take about 6 to 7 wounds, again killing about 6 to 7 Bladegeist, whereas the new 6-up save 2 health profile, yes, they will take more, they will take about 11 to 12 wounds, but that still means only around 5 to 6 dead. So realistically, this is going to pretty much all of the time be a buff to your mainline infantry units, things like your Grimghast Reapers and your Bladegeist Revenants. That extra wound does go a long way to help make up for your now worse armor save. And I'll be honest with you, I do think that points will largely stay the same. Yes, getting an extra wound is a big boost, but you know, to counter that, the drop from a 4-up save to a 6-up save is also a big deal. So I really can't see GW changing the points up all that much, maybe a tiny amount, but when you consider, you know, units like the aforementioned Chaos Warriors who are 2 health with a 3-up save and are 20 points a model, to me, a Bladegeist Revenant, which will now be 2 health, 6-up save, 5-up ward, and 18 points as it is at the moment, that does feel about right. I can't imagine them being much more expensive than something like a Chaos Warrior, so I do think they are going to be around the same ballpark in terms of points, and that to me means this new profile, this new armor save and ward save and 2 wound profile is going to be largely a buff, despite what it may initially look like. So that's one of the really big things that a lot of people were sort of flapping about with this new preview. But that isn't all that we got told about. We did also get to find out a bit more about the new battle traits that are coming. As I said, Wave of Terror is gone, and we are getting a whole brand new one in the form of Mounting Dread. This is a passive ability that subtracts the control score from enemy units dependent on the battle round you're in. So in battle round 1, your enemy units that are in combat with you will be -1 control. It will go to -2 control in battle round 2, all the way to -5 control in battle round 5. Now that's not an awful buff, like it will certainly come in handy in terms of scoring your objectives and winning you the game, but it is a bit boring. It's definitely a lot less exciting than the old Wave of Terror, and I definitely don't think it is as good as Wave of Terror was. Yes, it will help you win games on occasions, being able to reduce that control score, but equally, by the end of the game, even with that -5 control, there are some units and some armies in the game that will just shrug at that and be like, oh, -5, I don't care, I still have more than enough control to take that objective from you. So I wouldn't say it's an awful battle trait, it's just quite underwhelming, and certainly it's not very fun. It certainly feels like the Nighthaunt have lost a lot of their character and theme with this rule compared to Wave of Terror. There's also another new trait, Ethereal Translocation. This looks set to be a replacement ability for the old Discorporate trait that we had, which gave us a 5-up ward save for a command point. That is obviously going to go away now because you've got that 5-up base ward, so I think this is going to be a replacement battle trait for that. Ethereal Translocation is a teleport style rule. It does cost you a command point, but it allows you to pick up a unit in your movement phase once per turn, and remove it from the battlefield and essentially set it back up anywhere 9 inches from enemies. So it is quite good being able to get that extra movement and mobility to grab a backfield objective or pull an enemy unit out of position and then essentially move to a more advantageous spot away from them, or just throw a unit somewhere to block an enemy charge or get in the way of some movement, that sort of thing. It does have a lot of use, and so I think despite costing you a command point, it is going to be an ability that you will use quite a lot of the time just to really leverage the most out of the speedy nature of the Nighthaunt. So the battle traits have changed quite a lot, and whilst I do think we have some wins, you know, Ethereal is actually just better now. Despite your armor save going down, it is better as a rule because you can now use all-out defense with it. Other things don't feel quite as good. Mounting Dread feels really quite half-baked to me and just very unexciting and uninteractive, which I think is really not a good direction to go for the army battle traits in Age of Sigmar. However, on top of that, we also get told there are some updated and new battle formations to play around with. The Quicksilver Geists and the Royal Procession both bring some new rules. Lethal Rancor from the Royal Procession allows you to pick 2 units in the enemy hero phase, and they gain anti-charge +1 rend, so you can actually be a bit more defensive with your army with this. If the enemy is lining up some charges in their turn, you can make it a lot more problematic for them as they go in, because you can potentially get some units to 2 or maybe even 3 rend for their attacks going back into the enemy with any of your ghosts that get to swing. So it really can be a good deterrent for enemy squishy units, especially that are trying to charge into your guys. Vanish and Reappear, however, is really good, I think. This is the Quicksilver Geists rule, and as I said, it seems very, very strong. In your movement phase, you can pick a unit in combat and it can roll a dice, and then that unit can move its movement characteristic plus the dice roll. And you can move through models and enemy combat ranges, and you can end the move in combat. So this can potentially get some of your Nighthaunt units a 14-inch move in your movement phase whilst they're in combat. So they can use this to zip round to the other side of an enemy unit they're in combat with to potentially open up some charge lanes for your subsequent charge phase, or just move 14 inches all the way into another unit that was hiding behind the enemy unit that you were in combat with to tag, a sneaky enemy hero or something that was holding back and holding an objective or something that your opponent was trying to screen out and keep safe from your unit. It is just incredibly strong, and it really can allow you to get a lot of units your opponent, as I said, was trying to keep safe, locked up in combat. We do still seem to have some of the old popular ones. The article mentions the Deathstalkers with their ability to give run or retreat and still charge. However, the article does seem to imply, to me anyway, that might actually be changing. The article, the way it's worded, does seem to say that this is now just retreat and charge. That the wording is literally that the Deathstalkers retain their ability to flit out of combat before charging back in. So to me, this means that maybe the run and charge part of it could be gone, and that would absolutely suck because that was a huge, huge part of that battle formation. In my opinion, that would leave the formation pretty much dead in the water. It could just be some lazy wording or something like that, or the article isn't going into all the details. They may still have run and charge, but I think in either case, the Quicksilver Geist formation is incredibly good, and I think that is actually going to be the one to beat in the new battle tome. That isn't all. This was quite a long article. We also get told that there is a revamped set of traits and artifacts coming for the Nighthaunt, as well as an updated Law of Magic. We are now getting a revamped version of the Law of the Underworlds. This contains 3 brand new spells: Wrench Souls, Fell Blades, and Chains of Death. Wrench Souls is an amazing mobility tool. It lets an infantry unit wholly within 12 inches of the caster immediately use a normal move or a retreat move. It's cast on a 6+, and essentially means that in your hero phase, you can get an extra 8 inches of movement on some of your units, meaning you could move 8 inches with this, move another 8 inches in your movement phase, and then still attempt to charge. So this could give you a ludicrously big threat range on some of your hammer units. Fell Blades is a bit trickier to use. It goes off on a 6+, the same as Wrench Souls, but this gives a Nighthaunt unit wholly within 12 inches the ability to inflict a -1 to save roll debuff on an enemy unit if all of your unit's attacks go into that same target. And they do mention that this can work very, very well with things like your mounted Knight of Shrouds, who can activate one of your other units immediately after him. So the way that this works is that the unit you actually put this spell on doesn't benefit from the -1 to saves debuff. It just goes onto that enemy unit after your unit has fought. So the way it would work is you put this on your Knight of Shrouds, then you would fight with them into an enemy, and then any of your other units that fought into that enemy unit subsequently would essentially get an extra pip of rend because of the -1 to saves. So it can be great for something like a big blob of Bladegeist Revenants or Grimghast Reapers doing some follow-up attacks after something like your Knight of Shrouds has fought into an enemy unit, and it can really decimate the saving throws of even powerful units like Chaos Knights or Chaos Warriors, especially if they've charged into you and you've got things like the Lethal Rancor battle formation up. The final new spell is Chains of Death. We don't actually get to see this one, but we get told about it. It has an 18-inch range apparently, and it gives strike last to an enemy hero for the turn. So this could be great if you use it in the enemy hero phase. use it to debuff an enemy hero that is about to attempt to charge, and that could really make them have to weigh up the risks of charging a unit into you that has strike last and potentially taking a load of hits to the face before they get to swing. So these spells are all good. The bad side to it is that it does seem like we are losing the older spells. So classics like Shade Mist for -1 to incoming wound rolls, or Spectral Lure for a bit of recursion in your army, they seem to be gone, and that is a big loss. It is going to, certainly those two spells alone, going to make the army struggle a lot more when it comes to sort of survivability and durability. But as I said, these new spells, they definitely aren't bad. I think there's a lot of potential in them, and I think you are going to get a good bit of utility and power out of your spellcasters by bringing them. Now we get to the final part of the article. This is about the new hero, the Lord Vitriolic. He comes with all of his potions and concoctions. We saw the model in the big preview, but the rule we get told about for him is Spectral Alchemy. This is done in your shooting phase, and it allows you to roll a dice, and on a 3+, you can pick one of the abilities he has or one of the effects that he has, or you can randomly roll for 2 of them. Now the article isn't 100% clear. It isn't quite clearly worded as to whether if you pass the 3+ roll, you can pick one of the following effects, or you pass the 3+ roll and then you can either pick one effect or randomly roll for 2. The wording's a little bit weird there, but essentially you get to pick one effect or you randomly roll for 2 of them. And generally, I think picking the effect is going to be the better option, because whilst he does have 6 very good abilities to use, they are all so different and so sort of uniquely tailored at a specific target. You're going to end up rolling one that probably won't be very useful. So he gets things like being able to inflict a flat 6 mortal damage to an immobile enemy unit, like a terrain piece, or reduce a wizard's power level by 1, or remove D3 ritual points from an enemy priest, or just flat out remove a ward save from a unit. So whilst they're all very, very good, if you know you are going up against like an enemy wizard and you're casting this, it's got a 10-inch range by the way, but if you are using this ability against a wizard, what's the point in rolling 2 dice? Because knowing your luck, you're going to get the Phantasmal Solvent and do 6 mortal damage to a unit with a movement characteristic of 0, which the wizard won't have, so it will do nothing. And you will also roll Fear-Laced Hallucinogens and reduce the ritual points by D3, which again will do nothing on an enemy wizard. So I feel like they should always be one that you can look at and be like, this is the one I need. This is what is going to do the most against that specific target. So I think 99% of the time, you are probably just going to want to pick the one rather than rolling for 2 randomly. As I said, they do seem like very good abilities. You know, if you are going up against a wizard, reducing their power level by 1 is great. If you're going up against a priest and using this, reducing their ritual points by D3 can be the difference between them getting a chant off and not in their next turn. Equally, if you're going and using this ability against a unit of Blight Kings from the Maggotkin army book or battle tome, then turning off the ward saves, that is going to allow you to do a huge amount more damage into them. So it's a really good set of abilities. I just don't like the fact that it only goes off on a 3+, and I also think the rolling 2 dice to get the effect is a bit of a trick and a bit of a catch, and probably not what you're going to be wanting to do most of the time. And that is the new Nighthaunt rules, or at least the ones that we've been shown so far. As always, I'd really love to know your thoughts on them, whether you think they sound better or worse than what we've got currently, and also anything else that you are hoping or would like to see in the upcoming battle tome. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Warhammer content from me, but until next time, I'll catch you later guys.